Hello and welcome to the England versus San Marino match preview. Well, it's not really a match preview. I don't know enough about San Marino, believe it or not. Let's hope Gareth Southgate does, but I don't think you need to know enough about them really. Now, if a Scotsman talking about the England team is going to offend you, they sent the video for you. But Gonzo's unavailable today and he wanted to cover all the England games. So I thought, well, I've got two options here. Either I try and talk about Thomas Souček's perfect hat-trick last night for Czech Republic for 8 minutes, or I just talk about the England team. And I've decided to go with what Gonzo wanted, which is talking about the England team, because we've got the summer coming up, we've got the Euros coming up, and this will not necessarily become a Euro 2021 or a Euro 20 channel, but we'll be covering a lot of content in there. Obviously Scotland's there for once, woohoo! All the England games and stuff, so we're sort of warming up. England's got 3 games over the next 6-7 days. Gonzo wants to cover them, so I've decided to try and do what Gonzo was going to do. And before we get into it, 3 World Cup qualifiers for England: San Marino, Albania and Poland, or 2 extremely uncompetitive games, and then 1 game which England should win, but it'll be almost a competitive friendly, if you like, for them in the World Cup qualifiers. But what it does do, I think it gives Gareth Southgate a good opportunity, because often before the Euros you'll have a few friendlies, but you won't really try anything out, because you will have picked your squad. I know sometimes you'll pick 2 or 3 players more than what you're entitled to, and then you'll cut 2 or 3 players out the squad. But that doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. You tend to have your squad and then players in reserve in case there's an injury or something. So when you go to play those friendlies just before the major tournament, you've already got your squad. You've got the players you're going to be working with all summer. They're there, and what you're trying to do is just have a little look and try something with them. But mainly, you know who you're going to be playing in what role. But what this qualifiers does do is allow Southgate to take a look at some players that perhaps, basically, there's going to be a few winners. Last year when the Euros were meant to go ahead, there would have been some players that were not in the England squad a year ago that will be in it this year. Jack Grealish is probably the biggest one. Phil Foden, possibly Mason Greenwood, although he needs to step up a little bit towards the end of the season. But there's players like that. Then there's the ones that are sort of the next level down. You've got the likes of Connor Cody, James Ward-Prowse, Saka. They're all now in the England squad regularly. But a year ago, they perhaps might not have been in the England team, so there's definitely winners. But this batch of games allows Southgate to look at some of the players, try a couple of formations ahead of the Euro. So while it's World Cup qualifiers, but given how sort of uncompetitive the nature will be, it allows Gareth to get a few players in, have a look at them in the training camp and so on and so forth, and see if he wants to include them for the Euros. And it presents a brilliant opportunity for the likes of Jesse Lingard even, and then you've got 1 or 2 players in there like Ollie Watkins, this is a huge opportunity for him. If he impresses, if he gets an opportunity and gets a goal or 2, you just never know, he might just force his way into that Euro 2020 squad. Danny Ings was ahead of him probably last year. Danny Ings would have probably just got into it, maybe even ahead of Calvin Lewin as well. But Calvin Lewin is now a main feature, a mainstay in that Gareth Southgate squad. Ollie Watkins can try and get in there as well. Having a look at the England team, obviously there's a few injuries. Maddison, Grealish, Barnes and so on, but the only one player I don't really get is Eric Dyer. I don't really get that inclusion. I think Konsa has been the one that's been robbed, to be honest with you. I think he's better than Tyrone Mings. I've said it a couple of weeks ago. I think he's had a better season than Mings. I know Mings is in his squad. I think Konsa could feel a little bit hard done by that fact that Eric Dyer's in there. But this just is a reflection of Gareth Southgate. Gareth Southgate's a man who's all about trust. He needs to trust the players that he's bringing into his squad. And I think that's why he's quite insistent on, Jordan Pickford being his number 1, who's obviously not in the squad due to injury, which is funny enough because I think he's probably been England's best goalkeeper for the last month or something. But the rest of the season, I don't think he has been. But Southgate stuck with him and basically said, no, he is my number 1 goalie. I think it comes down to that key word with Southgate: trust. I just don't think he's seen enough of Dean Henderson to trust him. I don't think he's seen enough of Sam Johnson to trust him. I don't think he's worked enough with Nick Pope to trust him. Whereas with Jordan Pickford, Pickford was good at the World Cup for England, and I think that's what sort of plays on Southgate's mind, and that's why he's his number 1 choice. But it's a good opportunity for the 3 goalkeepers. It'll be interesting to see who he starts with. I'd imagine it will be Nick Pope, but it could be Dean Henderson. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a different goalkeeper for one of the upcoming games. Tonight would be the night to try him, but you're not going to learn much from your goalkeepers against San Marino and Albania, are you? You shouldn't be learning much about them anyway. 3 right backs in the squad. Kieran Trippier's in there with Kyle Walker. and Reece James. I think Reece James has probably been the best English right back this season. Not so much recently since Tuchel's come in at Chelsea. He seems to prefer Hudson-Odoi playing wing back and Azpilicueta like sort of right centre back, which must be frustrating for Reece James. But I do think he's a very, very good player. We've got Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell. Now Ben Chilwell's not been in the best of form, but I do think there's a big gap between Ben Chilwell and the next best left back in England. Whether that's Aaron Creswell, Matt Targett of Villa, they both had really good seasons, but they're just not quite as good as Chilwell. Simple as that. I think James Justin is a bit unlucky to have got injured for Leicester. I think he was on a really, really strong season, and also he's comfortable left or right, and I think that's huge when you come to a tournament like the Euros. You need one or two players that can cover 3 or 4 different positions because they are valuable. With centre backs, I'm doing all this from memory. I should really have wrote it down. I'm doing this from memory here. I know Connor Cody's in there. John Stones is back in the fold after an exceptional season with City. Maguire has to be picked in there. No Tyrone Mings is in there, and Eric Dyer. I think that's it. But looking at midfield, it looks a little bit light in some areas. Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice. That's good for us as West Ham fans. Hopefully, it means that Calvin Phillips will play 1 game at least, which should see Declan Rice only play 2 games at the most. I think Ward-Prowse is an excellent player for Southgate, because Southgate, the one thing that impressed me with England at the World Cup, well, to be fair, what I will say, when it comes to England, I know you're thinking, you must hate us. I don't hate England. It's a difficult thing to sort of explain. If England win, it doesn't bother me. If you get beat, if you get knocked out, I have a little, nice one. I like to take the mick out of some people and stuff like that. But it's a bit like, most people watching this right now are West Ham fans. It's a bit like watching Tottenham in the Champions League. Do you smile when they get knocked out? You probably do. Does it bother you if they progress in the Champions League? Probably not. If a Tottenham fan turns around and goes, well, at least we're here, which is something I've heard continuously since 1998, it doesn't really bother me, just like it doesn't bother us as West Ham fans. If a Tottenham fans has a pop at us for not being in the Champions League, we know we're not good enough at the Champions League. It's alright. It's a bit like us, Scotland with the World Cup and the Euros. We know we're not good enough to get into the World Cup and the Euros. Perhaps we should have been in more competitions, and we've come close a couple of times, but our expectation levels are low. So just to get into the Euros is a big deal for us. And I know some people were saying, oh, Tin Pot, Scotland, celebrating just getting Euros, but it's a big deal for us. I've always said the World Cup is the number one thing, and it should be a number one thing in a player's career, and I still stand by that. It should be. Unfortunately, I think money dictates the game now, but back in the days where money perhaps wasn't as sort of influential in football, playing at the World Cup was seen as the number one thing. And it's a shame, really. I'd like it to go back to that, and I think it is for a lot of players. But I think when it comes to like the World Cup qualifiers and that, you'll see some bigger players pull out of their country's games and stuff, and like Ben Davies pulled out of the Wales team despite playing in Tottenham's last one, and then we discovered that he played through the pain barrier for Tottenham. Yeah, it comes to Wales, I was like, oh well, I'm a bit sore actually, I'll miss this one, and it should be the other way around for me. But anyway, what was I saying before I got sidetracked? I don't know. I've lost my train of thought completely. But the England team, what I was just going to say, Ward-Prowse, that's what I was talking about, Ward-Prowse. What impressed me with England at the World Cup before they got put out by Croatia, so I couldn't resist, I'm sorry. What impressed me though was their set pieces. Every time you got a corner, you look like scoring. You were that dangerous. Southgate got his set pieces down, absolutely nailed it. And I think Ward-Prowse is the best set piece taker in the Premier League. So if you can get him in the team, is he good enough to start in England's 11? Not when everyone's fit, but at the minute, Jordan Henderson isn't fit. He's probably the man that Ward-Prowse is replacing here. So actually, I think Ward-Prowse in the midfield with, I don't know, Foden and Declan Rice or something, would just give you that set piece taker. And then when you've got the likes of Maguire and Stones, especially Harry Maguire, and even Harry Kane, Harry Kane is one of the best in the league at heading. When you've got those in the box, in the area for set pieces, I think it's ridiculous not to have someone like Ward-Prowse whipping it in for you, something like that. I seen random stat. I seen there was like a little chart get put up the other day with in-swinging corners and out-swinging corners in the Premier League. So how much of a portion does it come in like that or go out like that? And also the rest, which I can only assume is a short corner unless someone's hitting it freakishly straight into the box. But there was two teams very much with almost like a 50-50 split. Southampton and West Ham, because obviously we have Creswell and Bowen, left footers, taking them on both sides, and Southampton have Ward-Prowse taking them on both sides, where other teams, Burnley especially, was it looked about 90% in swinging corners or something like that. So you can tell what Burnley do. They want a left footer on the right and a right footer on the left, swinging them in towards the goalkeeper. But that just shows how good Ward-Prowse is at set pieces, that he takes every single one. I think he could be a big player for England if he's given such a prominent role. He's shooting from free kicks as well. When it comes to internationals, sometimes it is defined by individual moments of glory. You've got 90 minutes to win a game, simple as that really, and it's all about results. So you can go with the amount of times that England have scored a stunning set piece. Kieran Trippier at the last World Cup, Beckham's goal against Greece is probably up there in England's all-time goals and stuff like that. So sometimes having just someone with that little thing can make the world of difference. Raheem Sterling's bang out of form at the minute. Well, I say bang out of form, he's not really, but it's just for Raheem Sterling, he's not doing too good. So he was sort of like the first name on the team sheet for England. It'll be interesting to see how we get on when we've got Marcus Rashford fully fit, Harry Kane fully fit, Sancho fully fit, what Southgate does with that front three, because then you've obviously got like some Maddison and Grealish trying to get in there as well. And one of England's main players, I think, over the next 3 games and into the Euros will be Mason Mount. I know he gets a lot of... I think he's possibly the... Well, I'm going to say, I think he's the most underrated player in the Premier League. I think Mason Mount is the most underrated player in the Premier League. Obviously, it depends on who everyone rates and stuff, but just go by what I read on social media and the vibes I get from people. I think Mason Mount is seen as an average player, and I don't think he's average. I think he's fantastic. I don't think he's world class, but I think he's certainly elite. I think he's superb. I can see when he's someone that Gareth Southgate trusts with his life, and that's why I think, and it must be frustrating being an England fan when Southgate asks about Jack Grealish. Someone asks Southgate about Grealish and he always turns it round on Mason Mount. But what I think Southgate's trying to say is, I don't trust Jack Grealish, but I trust this guy, Mason Mount. I trust him. I want him in my team and stuff. So I can sort of understand it. And whenever I watch Chelsea or England, I think Mason Mount plays well every single game. I think he's a terrific footballer, and I think he would be one of the first names on Southgate's team sheet. I think the player that might give Mason a run for his money is probably Phil Foden, actually. Be interesting to see how Southgate lines up tonight. I won't be watching the game, obviously, because Scotland's on at the same time. Usually they're on different nights and I watch England and Scotland, but oh well, so I'll just have to watch Scotland tonight and probably get beat. Business as usual. We're coming down with a bump in Scotland, but I'm looking forward to the Scotland game, playing Austria tonight as well in the qualifier, so that'd be it's a tough start for us, a tough start, but we're just happy to be in the Euros. But anyway, back to England. I think they've got to be considered one of the favourites. You've got to be considered one of the favourites for the Euros. I think you have to be. The squad you've got is excellent. It really is. Is Southgate a good enough manager, though, for winning a major tournament like that? I think he could be. I think there's a big difference between a club manager and an international manager. When it comes to the internationals, I think it's more about the man management. It obviously comes down to tactics as well, but I think it comes down to man management more often than not. And you often hear the England players talk about how good Gareth is with these players and how good he is with treating them as people, almost. And Ben Foster was on Jack Mate's podcast last week or the week before, and he was saying he hated life under Fabio Capello, and it was just little things like you weren't allowed to melt ketchup and stuff like that, and he made it almost like unhappy. You were unhappy to be in England camp because of how controlled it was. You weren't allowed to be a person. You were almost like a robot, whereas Southgate, I think, allows you to be a human, allows you to be a person. Maybe not to the extent of Foden and Greenwood in Iceland, but he allows you to sort of be yourself, and I think that's important. And I think England will do all right at the Euros. And when I say do all right, I'd be surprised if they didn't at least qualify for the semi-finals and stuff. You've got to be one of the favourites. You've got the talent there, but you've got a world-class striker, you've got a top goalkeeper, top defenders, top midfielders. You've got elite players in every single position, and on the bench to cover every single position. It's got to put into context. Scotland, it's quite a big deal for us. We've just called up Che Adams from Southampton, and that is seen as our sort of, not pin-up boy, but one of our main strikers immediately. He's never had a cap for Scotland, and he comes and he's immediately an automatic pick for Scotland. That is the difference in the quality. But anyway, Jesus, it's 15 minutes. I was thinking, I hope I can talk about England for long enough. Crikey, I've done quite well, or bad, depends how you want to look at it. But that's your England preview of the San Marino game, which I'm not spoke about. It's going to be a walk in the park, isn't it? I don't know, 5-0 England, if you want predictions, some 6-0 England, something like that. But Gonzo will be watching the game tonight. Hopefully he'll do a review for you immediately after the game. Anyway, there you go. Scotsman talking about England. I'm going to leave it there. I can disappear. If you somehow enjoyed this, drop a like on it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll catch you in a bit.